Welcome back to the podcast. We're in the 8-week series of the Summer Shred series. And today we're going to be talking about one of the most common misconceptions that I hear when it comes to losing weight, building muscle mass, and just seeing results, that your workout has to be hard to be effective, and the misconception around what a hard workout is and how that gets you results. So let's dive into it. I want to create a couple of micro episodes that are going to really dive into the scientific component of how your training, how your nutrition, and how your overall strategy with fitness and nutrition has to be aligned in a specific way, but it also has to be strategized. And so my goal is to create a couple episodes that are going to be quick and digestible and really talk about the basics of what you need in order to get that lean build, which is what most women are chasing, and making sure that you're not just wasting effort and that you're focused on the right things. And the first one we're going to be talking about is how hard and effective workouts are not necessarily the same, and that hard can be misconstrued or misunderstood and applied with the wrong approach, causing you not to get the results that you want. And a few ways that I see this articulated is with your workouts being harder, centered around how many calories you burn during a workout, how sore you are after a workout, how much you're sweating after a workout, and even how exhausted you feel. And those don't necessarily equate to results. What you want technically when you're doing a workout is for your workout to be effective in the sense of building strength, focusing on muscle hypertrophy so that you can build muscle mass that is going to equate to having more muscle mass on your body, changing your body composition, and allowing you to burn more body fat on your own. And you do that with a very specific type of training, specifically strength training. And when you are doing strength training, this needs to be done in a way that is going to be effective in terms of the muscle groups that you're targeting, and ensuring that the muscle groups you are targeting are also going to have proper recovery, because without proper recovery, you are unable to actually build muscle mass, and your body's not going to prioritize the muscle building phase, which is truly what you want. Your workouts are more of a period where we're breaking down your muscle and we're causing your body to force it to adapt. And when your body adapts, it needs time to recover, repair, and rest so that you can actually build more muscle mass and train heavier in your next lift. So I want to talk about a few different things today. The first is why people are confused on this theory and what hard actually means, looking at some more of the extreme plans and what I find to be almost unproductive in terms of the type of workouts you're doing, depending on your specific goal. And then also talk about why more people burn out versus getting lean based on the type of workouts that they're doing. So let's dive into it. The first is why there's so much confusion around hard workouts and what hard workouts look like. I think that there has been a huge wave of fitness content, and unfortunately, there is a wide variety of fitness content out there that is just incorrect and that is promoting the wrong things. And through years of dieting culture and years of fitness and nutrition changing, we've seen a lot of studies been done that have disproven certain beliefs around fitness and nutrition. And one of the biggest misconceptions that I see is that you have to burn more calories during your workout, or your workout has to be very intense, you have to sweat a lot, or you have to be completely exhausted when you leave the gym. And that's just not true in terms of what we're trying to do when we're building more muscle mass and when you're trying to get leaner. When you're trying to get leaner, most people are just looking at the fact that they want to be smaller, or they're looking at motivation, and the person they're looking at is potentially has more muscle mass on them, and their body composition is made up of lean tissue along with less body fat. And that is generally what we see when it comes to people finding inspiration of what they're looking for when they're trying to lose weight or when they're trying to change their body type and their physique. What happens is you truly do want to focus on body composition more than you want to focus on fat loss. And fat loss primarily gets the most attention because that is what we kind of associate with getting smaller or when we're changing our physique. But a lot of the times we're not paying attention to what's truly happening, which is body recomposition. When you get smaller, if you're not able to show off any muscle mass, you have more of that skinny fat look to you, where you're not necessarily going to have that toned or built structure where you can see a lot of muscle definition and, like people will describe, lean and toned. When you have that physique, you have more muscle mass on your body and you're showing off your muscle mass as you lose body fat. So instead, you're changing your body composition and what your mass is made up of. It's also a part of the fat loss process, because for fat loss to be effective, we don't want to necessarily be in the lowest restrictive amount of calories that we could possibly be in to see results. What we want is our metabolism effectively burning calories on its own. And it does that through body recomposition and by having more muscle mass on our frame. The more muscle mass that we have, the more our body adapts, and muscle requires more energy than fat. So it's going to cause our metabolism to increase, meaning that we're burning more calories at rest, which in turn results in fat loss, as well as maintaining results longer and more effectively. So with some of these fitness cultures and the glorified workouts and the glorified things around diet culture and fat loss, we can get lost in translation of doing harder workouts, making sure workouts are longer, or if that workouts aren't sweaty enough or burning enough calories, that we're not losing weight. And the truth is, when you're doing a workout, sometimes when you're lifting weights, it's not going to be the sweatiest workout. You're not going to be burning 400 plus calories in your workout. And that does not mean that you're not seeing results. When you're doing a strength training workout, your body is actually burning calories outside of the workout, and it continues for hours past your workout. It also is going to help you build more muscle mass, which down the line, as we've talked about, is going to improve your metabolism and help burn more calories on your own. So instead of just looking at that number of 400 calories during your workout, we're looking at the long-term effect of building more muscle mass. And even if your watch isn't correlating that to a high level of calories, it doesn't mean that that's not happening behind the scenes, especially if you have your nutrition, your daily activity dialed in. So some examples of what I see when it comes to being harder in order to lose body fat or to see the physique changes that we want is a 2-hour workout period, eating under 1,200 calories, heavy cardio and intense cardio workouts, detoxes, and a no day off mentality. Those are things that are more extremes and challenging, but they're not challenging in the sense that they're going to get the results that you want. They're almost what I would call effort wasters. You're not actually following a plan or a structured method. You're instead hoping that by working harder, results will naturally follow. And more times than not, I find that women burn themselves out and can't stay on the same plan because they're in this cycle and this loop of being so restrictive and so challenging that it's not sustainable, and they fall into old habit. So what you want to do instead is make sure that you have structure around your workouts and your nutrition in a sustainable way that allows you to see sustained fat loss as well as maintaining muscle mass through a long period of time so that you can consistently see these changes over a long period of time and then slowly change your body composition to maintain results long term. Now, I'm briefly going to cover the things that do not have a heavy impact on fat loss and things that are technically overglorified, in my opinion, that could be effort wasters and cause you to burn out quickly. The first is excessive cardio. If you're doing hours of cardio repeatedly, and that is the only form of workouts that you are doing, you are essentially causing yourself to burn out and you're not building muscle mass through cardiovascular activity. Yes, cardio is great for cardiovascular activity and there's a purpose for it. But if it's not structured and it's the only thing you're doing, especially for hours on end, you're draining yourself of energy and you're depleting yourself of even potential muscle mass, which is going to cause muscle wasting. And that's not what we want to do here. So having cardio is effective and it has its purpose, but it can't be the only thing you're doing, especially if you're trying to lose body fat and you're trying to do it sustainably and effectively. The second is extremely low calories. Yes, a calorie deficit is important for fat loss to occur, but just slashing your calories and going as low as you possibly can is not going to get you the outcome that you want. And your body is very adaptive. So the more that you do that, the farther down the line it's going to be in terms of where its maintenance calories are. So if you sit there 4 months to 12 months, you've been in a calorie deficit for a long period of time that has caused your body to adapt, and that's going to reserve your energy stores for other things. And the first thing that's going to happen is your metabolism is going to slow down so that it can preserve energy for essential functions. And now you have a new maintenance calorie range, which is going to impact not only the amount of muscle mass that you have on your body, but it's also going to impact your maintenance calories. So now it's going to be harder for you to lose weight. And that's where we see that plateau happen pretty frequently in terms of being in a calorie deficit too long. So excessive calorie cutting isn't necessarily the solution. A strategic calorie deficit is how you lose body fat paired with the right strength training plan. The third is training to exhaustion. This is either in terms of paying attention to in training only to soreness, training to your highest rep and set range, and always focusing on just more activity or more exhaustion in your lifts. We don't necessarily want to exhaust or fatigue the muscle. So that doesn't mean that you want to go to your highest rep and set range. We want to have an effective rep and set range that's going to allow you to build muscle hypertrophy and allow your muscles to grow and develop. And we also want to be looking at our ranges of our reps, making sure that they're close to 1 to 3 reps to the failure point for compound movement and around 1 rep to failure in your isolated movements, meaning that you're training to a failure point to help with load in your training and build muscle mass. We also want to ensure that you are going to be training to a capacity that's going to allow you to add progression throughout your training plan versus staying stagnant. And then lastly is the detoxes and cleanses. I see this a lot in fitness and diet culture of going through a detox, cutting out foods, doing a fast to help lose body fat. And in reality, what this is really doing is even if the scale is dropping, more than likely this is coming solely from water weight. Because when you cut out carbs, when you lower your calorie intake, your body is going to flush out what it doesn't need, getting rid of excess water weight, especially when you are lower in carbohydrates and calories. You're not going to be holding on to as much water weight as you usually do. So, yes, the scale may be changing, but remember the scale is associated with your entire body mass, not just body fat. So, let's talk about what actually works when it comes to fat loss. The first is a sustainable and strategic calorie deficit. We're not looking to get to your lowest calorie deficit ranges and hold there forever. We want to have a strategic range that you're going to be reaching that's going to be paired with your daily activity and your strength training so that you are in a slight calorie deficit. I generally recommend anywhere from 200 to 500 calories and doing that for anywhere for 6 to 8 weeks before changing anything up, because that is going to allow you to see consistency over a long period of time. We also want to make sure that we're eating enough protein paired with enough calories, so we're not necessarily trying to find a quick fix and lose as much weight on the scale as possible, but maintain as much muscle mass as we possibly can as we're going through a caloric deficit. Your body is going to use whatever energy source is readily available, and muscle mass is one of the first ones that become readily available. So if you're not eating enough protein and your calories are too low, muscle mass is one of the first things that will go. And that's what we're trying to avoid in a calorie deficit. So not all weight loss is the same. We want to focus on structured fat loss. The second is making sure that you're pairing that with protein and resistance training. This is how we're going to sustain the most amount of muscle mass that we possibly can, which is going to ensure that your metabolism is staying at a high rate and burning more fat on its own long term. And then pairing that with enough sleep and recovery so that you're getting enough rest to repair and being able to increase your load and apply progressive overload in your training consistently. That is going to be the thing that's going to help ensure that you are continuously seeing development in your muscle mass as well as maintaining muscle mass. If you are constantly sleep deprived or you're not focused on enough recovery, we can also see things in terms of nutrition from sleep deprivation, like cortisol increasing, which will cause cravings to increase, seeing hunger increase, and even poor recovery, which is going to affect you in your training. And then lastly, ensuring that you're increasing your daily movement. We're not going to be just solely looking at your calories as your calorie deficit component. If you're adding in daily movement throughout your day instead of just focusing on eating less and working out more, you're going to be able to drastically increase the amount of NEAT activity that you are having in a day, which is going to increase the amount of calories you burn and take away from how much you have to take away from nutrition. I aim for anywhere from 7 to 10,000 steps per day, depending on what your goal is and where your step count is at now. This is a much more sustainable way of adding in daily cardio than focusing on HIIT or high intensity cardio. That's going to drain your glycogen stores and drain your energy, and it's not going to be sustainable long term. This is something that should not increase hunger if you're just focusing on walking and daily activity, and it's something that you can sustain for a long period of time. So I hope this was helpful in understanding how hard in your workouts does not always correlate to effective strategies you should be using in order to see fat loss and see effectiveness and results from your plan. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and I'll talk to you next week in the next episode.